Evolutionary.org Hardcore 2.0 coming your way, episode 122. Today we're going to talk about the best anabolics.com forums logs presented by Ultima. So Anabolics is a sister site of evolutionary.org. And in this episode, we're going to discuss six of the highly viewed logs from Anabolics. We're going to talk about what each member's goals are and what they've accomplished so far. So let's jump right into it, Mobster. First one we're going to talk about is a guy named the number 8, Cantrell, Cantrell. And his log is titled Testosterone Blend and NPP Cycle Log. And in this one, let me tell you something. This guy, he is a big, strong dude. He's he's a big dude, and he's benching over 400 pounds. That was his goal, and I think he got there during the log. As we kind of take a look at his log, he's been lifting consistently for 4 years, off and off, since he was 18. He's 28 years old, and his training is chest, legs, cardio, shoulders, arms, back, and then more cardio. And then he does 6 eggs, one salmon packet, one oatmeal packet for breakfast. So that's about 70 grams of protein. 3 hours later, he eats a turkey sandwich on wheat, which is about 30 grams of protein, as he says. Then 3 hours after that, his main lunch is chicken, rice, and broccoli, which is 60 grams of protein. And then 3 hours after that, he eats the same thing, but a smaller portion, which is 40 grams of protein. And that's his pre-workout meal. So then he goes to the gym. And then after the gym for dinner, he gets a salad from a place called Cafe Rio, and he adds chicken to it, or he'll have chicken with mashed potatoes and broccoli. And then for dessert, he'll blend Greek yogurt, protein, creatine, which is dissolved in warm water, milk, frozen fruit, and peanut butter. So he really is one of those guys who eats a big breakfast, then eats every 3 hours throughout the day, eats a pre-workout meal, eats a post-workout meal. So his goals are size and strength. And right now it says he's sitting around 240. His bench at the start of the log was 355, which is very impressive. Squat is 400. And he says he's ran tests at 600 milligrams for 16 weeks, and he sees some strength increases off of that. So he starts this log, and he does a blend of testosterone and MPP together. So he's also talks about some of his work. And Mobster, he does 10 to 12 shifts doing concrete. So he's a
Yeah, 10 to 12 hours, Steve. That is graft. That is hard work.
yeah. So he's definitely blue collar,
Yes.
and so he's basically destroying his body at work.
Yeah.
Then he's destroying, and he says after work is when he goes to the gym. So he destroys his body at work,
Yeah.
and he destroys his body in the gym. So really, like over time, he's got to basically, be aware of that, that he may have end up with some health issues from doing that when it comes to breaking down his body. But he's an absolute beast, very, very strong dude. So
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
basically the prototypical meathead, big, big, strong dude.
I don't know. You and I talked about this before a little bit because we're both kind of really, we're both from a blue collar background. I'd argue that we're probably more white collar now than we was when we started out working and our careers and everything else. So I've done physical laboring type work for 7.5 years. Other stuff was just kind of semi, but I was working in a meat processing plant. And trust me, there was periods of time when I did that particular job, and I'm echoing what Encantrell does because our Christmas work, and we've just had some other logs on the forum where the guys are starting to get busy, which I think is for the same reason. We would work the same as him. 10, 12-hour days was regular at Christmas, and it was physically moving meat around. Concreting can be, Steve, especially the actual down on your hands and knees shoveling, probably one of the hardest things you can physically do. And it's one of those, it has to be done when it has to be done. The concrete comes out, it needs to be put in the corners of all the molds and the work that you're doing. And you can't half-ass that job, stop for a bit and come back to it. So when you're flat out, physically flat out on that, You have to do the fucking work. And if that's hours, then it's hours. And it's only when, it's already where it's supposed to be and it's already poured, leveled off and everything else, then you get a break. So I've done physically similar, perhaps not 6, 7 hours at a time, but certainly physically hard work. And especially when we were busy, all I could do was maintain. I could barely get a couple of workouts in a week. They'd be very brief, just enough to keep the muscle on me. And it was a job to feed. So I get what he's doing, especially when I was younger. He reminds me, and I've put this in my little notes, saying he reminds me, especially from the back here, because that's his favourite pose, of Roid Rage, but a younger Roid Rage, physically. He's one of the other members on our forum. And so I look at him and I go, okay, when he's doing the work that he's doing, to then go, and as you say in your intro, go, probably the only way to do it, Steve, if he went home, he'd want to rest. So straight into the gym, get the gym work done, then go home and just feed. And please, God, get enough calories in and enough protein in just to hold on to your size. The simple fact that the start of this log was August of this year. I believe, as you say, without rushing to the end of the log while we're talking, I believe he's hit his targets. So the fact that he can do this physically hard job, which is probably about 30-40% of our audience demographic, and hit physical targets and get the workouts in. We see this, not so much on our forums, but on other forums. Oh, I was busy today. Oh, the kids needed to do this. The kids, you're not working 10 or 12 hours concrete. You are not having to get up early, get to a site, and then work flat out for 6 or 7 hours until the job is done. And I mean, some of the rest of the time will be breaks, coffee, setting up and whatever else. But once the work starts on concrete, that's it. It's a one time you go until the job's done. Most people's jobs, our physical stuff, mine now is not on this kind of level whatsoever. So the fact that he can hit his macros, get the gym time in, make progress, and do this on a relatively straightforward stack proves that even if you think you're working fucking hard, etc., you can still get this shit done. What do you think on that, Steve?
Yeah, one of the advantages of a labor intensive job like this is that you're going to burn a lot of calories at your work. So you can really eat a ton of food every
Yes,
day. And you
yes,
can eat
yes.
every 2 to 3 hours every day. And it's not going to make you fat.
If the work doesn't get in the way, yes.
But so in his example here, I'm looking at his latest bench press. So he is up to 380 on the bench
Mm,
press. This was what he hit on November 9. And his BB incline was for 225 4x8. And we'll include this in the show notes as well. So, and the nice thing too, he not only does all that, but he also hits the treadmill. And pretty much every workout that I'm seeing going through his
yeah,
log, he
yeah,
still takes the time to hit the treadmill. So he's basically burning a shit ton of calories between his
yeah,
work and his workouts, and he's taking in a shit ton of calories. So that's one of those situations where you're burning a lot of calories and you're bringing it
yeah.
in. So it's an expensive food bill. It's an expensive food bill when you're like this. I used to be like this, and
Me
Mobster
too. Yeah, yeah.
Mobster said, you know,
I used to run to work and then do those shifts. So yeah, yeah, yeah. Listen, we would try to work as fast as we could to get a break, and the guys would go and have a cigarette, a smoke. I was literally just eating, Steve. All I could do, I'd have food in my locker. When the canteen was shut, I would go to my locker and the guys would be hanging out the windows, having a cigarette, having a fag, whatever we call it in the UK. And I would be drinking milk, eating bananas, having a sandwich, just to give myself the energy to get through the day, just to maintain my body weight. I will say, because you and I have talked about this blue collar stuff before, one issue. It's just this is more of a sort of a helpful hint, helpful mobsterism for the listeners. You can almost get away with eating crap when you're doing this kind of work and training and everything else. So one and only time you can do it. The moment you retire, or the moment you change to an easier job, or the moment you do a different trade, you can't eat dirty anymore. Because he will literally burn off all that fat as energy. He will burn for all the crappy food that he shouldn't be eating. And I don't think his food's that bad, Steve, compared to what some I've seen. We're not talking about massive English fry-ups here. But what you will get, and this happens a lot, these guys retire and they go off and they start doing supervisory managerial roles. They carry on with their food habits from before, and they get massively fat and out of shape and in a really bad condition. So you have to have half an eye, which I have done in the past, on what I was able to do at the factory when I was literally moving hundreds of pounds of meat at a time, etc., to my next job, which was way less physical. Still a little bit of moving around, still a little bit about, 20,000, 30,000 steps a day as it was, but nothing like the physical calorific burning of the work and the laboring that I was doing before. And that is super, super important. You adapt as he does to the situation he's in. And as we say, the fact that he's still able to make progress, I'm impressed on that basis, Steve. Back to you.
All right, let's move on to the next guy. Next guy is JJ210TX, and his log is called JJ's 8-week Trenbolone Enanthate Anavar Testosterone Cypionate Cycle Log. And his stats, his starting stats, he's 43 years old, 5'10", 206 pounds. And this is his first cycle of anything other than SARMs and testosterone. So he started out as an 8-week cycle with Tren-E, 200 milligrams a week, taking 100 milligrams every 3.5 days, Anavar 50 milligrams every day, and he splits the dose, AM and PM, 25 milligrams. And then he does testosterone SIP, 500 milligrams a week, with 250 milligrams twice a week. So his goal was to put on as much lean mass as possible. So he starts out with the log talking about his struggles. And one of his struggles is his diet. And he struggles with a couple things, keeping it clean enough and also getting enough calories when he's on a cycle. So this is definitely this is the challenge of bodybuilding, because you have to balance that. You have to balance eating clean while also getting in enough calories, especially when you're doing a trend cycle. Because on trend, you need carbs. So the key is with him, and it was one of the things we all tried to help him with, is getting his diet on point and showing him that there's a difference between bad carbs and good carbs, bad proteins and good proteins, bad fats and good fats. So, with carbs, for example, on trend, you want carbs, but there's a difference between potatoes, baking yourself a potato and not smothering it in a bunch of crap like they do in steak restaurants, and eating a cake. They're both carbs, or eating bread, white bread. They're both carbs, but one is good, one is not. Beans, peas, fruits, vegetables, these are carbs, but they're healthy carbs. So healthy fiber, healthy carbs, there's a difference between that and dirty things like ice cream and cake and chocolate, fake chocolate full of sugar. So this is one of the things he does. Now he's basically on this log, he's had a lot of ups and downs throughout his log, but he definitely, pushes himself to be his very best on this log, and he's gotten the log pretty big. So go ahead, Mobster. What do you think about JJ?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the food thing that you just discussed, and we've actually brought this subject up. And let me give you an example again from my own experience. I believe it's similar to Stevesmi's experience, and something that some of our listeners would benefit from learning about and practicing. So Steve referred to the fact, and we have seen this occasionally in other logs, and indeed on a log podcast we did just this week or last week, Steve, I referred to the fact that on one log we'd seen a member list a bunch of food that they were eating, which in their mind was kind of healthy, and yet every single thing came out of a packet. There wasn't anything that was scratched. There wasn't anything that was prepped. So here's the thing again, okay? I just touched upon talking about the previous log, how when you're as physical as the last person in control, you can get away almost with eating fry-ups and crappy food because just the sheer volume of energy coming from the fats and unhealthy products, probably almost okay, almost. So here's the thing. When I've trained for competition and when I've decided I'm not a bodybuilder, so in a perverse kind of way, it's not as important. And yet, the more fresh fruit and vegetables, the more scratch cooked or almost scratch cooked food that I eat, the more Steve and I have discussed this with other people, switching out pre-packaged food for food you produced yourself. It could even have the same sort of base ingredients, Steve. So something you brought from the supermarket or from the store, a frozen bag of vegetables, and then you look, hang on, it should just have frozen vegetables inside, but look how much crap's with it. All the seasonings and sauces that Steve's referred to when you go out to a restaurant. Now you can almost, Steve, let's say you go out to a restaurant and you have something chicken based, comes with a sauce. It has uh, 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 um, sweet potato fries, but they're covered in some sort of seasoning. If you went home and you cooked it, you would notice a taste difference. But here's the thing: you would notice how you felt on fresh fruit and vegetables versus pre-packed stuff. You would notice how much better your skin quality was, less water retention, and so on and so forth. So what we were getting at, especially with him, is even an argument here, Stephen. This might even explain the ups and downs somewhat. And of course, his life, and perhaps he's just more open about good mood and bad mood, which is great because it does affect how you train and how you feel and the progress you're going to make in the gym. But I'm focusing on the food for a second here, Steve. You would have an element of the dirt, and I use that euphemism only so far as all the chemicals and sauces and crap that you can add to food versus a sense of well-being and the cleanliness and the energy. No peaks and troughs, Steve, because you're not having as many sugars or syrups in your sauces. Your energy is more consistent. Your skin gets better. Your eyes look brighter, and so on and so forth. Talk a little bit about that, Steve, and obviously we can talk about more about the member themselves momentarily.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, we talk about nutrition a lot, and nutrition is very important. And there is all kinds of ways to approach this from a financial, economic perspective to anything else. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to use nutrition to your advantage and to screw yourself up with nutrition. So I think he's learned a lot in his log for nutrition. So one of the things, unfortunately, with JJ is he had some bad news during his log where the doctor said that he had a torn rotator cuff, so he had to have surgery on his
Yeah,
shoulder.
yeah,
And one of the things was the good news is it's covered by his insurance 100%, but the bad news is the time he misses from work because he works a labor job, just like the first guy we talked about. He's also a blue collar guy. So now he has to miss like 3 months of work. And he has said that he was in prison a few years prior. So he's just now getting his life back in order, paying off his debt, and now he has to get himself back into debt. So this is an example of the ups and downs of
yeah,
life that
yeah,
everybody has to go through.
absolutely.
And he'll push through this. We all said, we have his back. Even one of the members, I think Body Monster, offered him a job working on his ranch. So if
Yeah,
he needs a job, he can always go and fly to Texas and get a job working on the ranch. So everybody kind of got together and tried to help him out to get him through this tough time. But look, it just shows you that you
the
know,
support, the
yeah,
support.
the support, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Let, let, let,
I
me,
yeah,
let me sorry, Steve.
really quick,
You and
yeah.
I are gonna,
Mhm.
yeah, we're actually gonna do a show somewhat on more life elements in a not too distant future. So here's the thing, right? Every single person on the forums, Steve, myself, every single member on all the forums that we're involved in, has some experience, or they will, of certain elements of life, things that kick you up the arse and try to fuck you up mentally, emotionally, and whatever else, right? And the idea, I love the idea that even if it's just a figurative thing, that Body Monster or whoever says, listen, right, if you absolutely fucking have to, there's a chance for you to come and do some work here, get your shit right. We'll still hit the gym. We'll still do this because we've all had that experience. Not every single one of us has been in prison, but we've all made mistakes at some point in our life. And the single thing that we've all got in common is that we want to improve ourselves vis-a-vis the gym, whether that's getting lean, getting stronger, getting more muscular, whatever else. So the idea is that we can have almost a collective man hug, woman hug, whatever you want to call it, and support a member when they're having a shitty day or something's happened and remind them that this is, like I've talked about with my back issue back in 2016, a blip, a little bump in the fucking road. And we will try to make sure it doesn't become a fucking mountain. Just make it a molehill. Let's keep it small. You're going to get through this. Your shoulder's going to get better. It's covered by insurance. You're not going to get crazy fucked up. He's literally, and I'm looking on one of the last few pages, He says, just pulled up to the gym for the first time since I've hurt my shoulder. Still went in there and got some shit done, Steve. So just started recovery, making sure that everything else is covered. And hopefully, like I said, that we've supported them enough that they can get through this little bump in the road, get back in the gym like he has done. And this is how important logs can be in helping members, not just with training and food macros and the right choices of training lifts and volume or whatever else, but literally the big life crisis type shit that's really kind of almost feels like it's just trying to take you away from the gym, taking you away from your targets, taking you away from when you're getting things right, and makes you want to go and fuck shit up because that's easier. And no, we've tried our best in our little way to keep this person back on the straight and narrow, keep them in the gym. And here they are, like I said, I'm looking on one of the last pages, November the 5th, Steve, pull up in the gym for the first time. So he's back in there, he's kicking ass again. He's still making progress. He's still been keeping his diet on point. And of course, we've been helping as much as we can
Yep.
with suggestions about rehab and so on. Back to you.
All right, let's talk about Ravenson. And Ravenson, he is another guy. His log is called My Recomp Cycle 2024. So his goal is to recomp. So let's talk a little bit about the compounds he's using. Testosterone SIP, Deca, Anavar, and Winstrol. And his diet macros starting were 125 grams of carb, 100 gram of fat, 200 gram of protein. So pretty standard stuff. And let's give you a couple examples of his meals and diet. So Ravenson, he's a prototypical average Joe. He's not looking to compete. He's not looking to be the next, champion, Mr. Olympia, but he's just looking to get into better shape and do a nice recomposition. So he's very consistent. I'll give you an example of his meals. One of his lunches, for example, 10-ounce boneless, skinless chicken breast.
Yep.
And he even lists the macros, a cup of basmati rice, and then 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil. Very, very simple. That's a simple meal that anybody can do. And he lists his macros, and he talks about how much protein he's getting, 78 grams of protein in that meal, 15 grams of carbs, 640 calories throughout that meal. Weight training, very, very simple. He does 30 sets. So that volume is pretty strong, an hour and a half of training.
Yeah, fuck that, Steve. Go on.
But he does a chest press, 100 by 20, 20, 15. Seated dips, 120 by 20, 20, 15. Mac overhead press, 50 by 15 by 3. Decline cable fly, 30 by 15 by 3. Rope overextension, 30 by 20 by 3. The mock lat raise, 75 by 15 by 3. Pec deck, which is something that a few guys are doing now on the forums, 115 by 15 by 3. Mac crunch, 100 by 20 by 3. Mac obs, 70 by 20 by 3. And mock back extension, 70 by 20 by 3. So very, very high volume workouts. And he
Yeah.
likes to just get into the gym and he likes to kill it, and it's working out well for him. He's seeing good, slow, steady progress throughout the log. Again, he's not trying to transform himself into the
No,
Mr. Olympia.
no,
He just
no.
wants to get in better shape, lose some fat, and gain some muscle in the process. And it's working well for him. It's a nice, consistent log. I really like it. Go ahead.
You know, he's got one of the things that I made a note of here, Steve, is he previously had spinal issues. And if indeed this is at the beginning of the log, actually, because I said, why aren't you squatting? I've asked that of a few members. And it turns out, as one of the few guys here, and we've actually spoke about other logs as well, where either the information wasn't available or it was bullshit. Right. So this is a good example of a member who's genuinely had an actual medical issue, spinal issue that required, and he's had some stem cells injections. And one of the notes I made in addition to that was that being leaner will help with the spinal stuff. The guys on the forum came in and talked about yoga, hot yoga specifically, some stretching exercises, etc., etc. And so one of the notes, again, in addition to that I made was that a good example of a more popular aim, in brackets, recomposition. So recomposition we've talked about is almost the sort of goal, I would argue, of the great and vast majority of people that go to a gym, right? They're not looking to be Mr. Olympia. They're not looking to be the world's strongest man or anything on that level. What they're looking to do is get leaner, add a little bit of muscle, be more attractive. That's it. They're not trying to, have an 8-pack and rip psoriasis and lines in their glutes. They're not. Okay. They just want a smaller waist, feel more physically mobile, be able to move easier, and so on and so forth. And especially, as is the example here, doing that when you've had a spinal issue to deal with is a big fucking deal. And it's a good example of coming back from something major and still being able to progress, etc. The only other thing I put here was there was a bit of debate regards whether or not he was Mexican, purely and simply because he seemed to favour pork tenderloin over chicken breast. And as he pointed out, great protein, better price. And the only other thing is, Stephen, I said that every single food entry, nutritional, whatever, was super detailed. Literally every food type, and he was meal prepping. These were scratched up book type meals, way more better than stuff, generic pre-mixed, pre-cooked, etc. stuff from the supermarket. But everything, there's almost an anal aspect to it. Every single food type was broken down with fat, carb, protein, whatever. And I mean every food type, whether it was a potato, how many grams of fat, how many carbs in, how much protein is there, every single thing. So super detailed in that particular example. Now, that's not something you need to do, but there's even an argument. I think someone actually said to him, Steve, why no photographs of your food? And we've talked about this. It isn't necessarily that you, the listener, training with a log, need to take a picture of your meal, but you are inspiring others as he is doing with the information that you're putting out there, with the progress that you make. And we forget how visual human beings are. And he said, it's probably like me, Steve, you don't need to put everything on social media. Yes, but you do help other people. If you show that plain food can look great, if you show that plain food can look tasty. So things like this. And again, even if it was boring, even if it was plain, he's making progress. He is recompositioning. He is being able to do those things. And he's able to do those things even when he's had a back issue. That's for a lot of people, for the average Joe, can you imagine, Steve, if you'd had a spinal issue, you wouldn't necessarily want to go to the gym. It wouldn't be on your radar. It would be something you know. Let me give you a very quick example, and I think he's a good example of this himself. Lots of people are allowed by family, etc., to rest up, to use sticks. Don't you do anything, I'll do it for you, etc., etc. Those of us, and I'm Steve Smith, both of I and I have had injuries. The girlfriend's had a hip operation. Doing the rehab, consistently exercising has enabled us to return from injuries or operations, hip replacement in a girlfriend's case, where when we've gone back for checkups with the doctors, we're in great nick and everybody else is still on sticks, still using walkers, still in chairs. So the fact that this guy's had a spinal issue, stem cell injections, still able to get back in the gym, still make progress, and literally just in the last 8, 9 days, Steve, being able to return to the gym and still recomposition is a good example where you don't give up, you keep plugging away, you keep your diet tight, even when you're rehabbing, you do the rehab, the guys are helping you with rehab, and you're still able to come back and get in the gym and kick ass all over again. So once again, a good example of someone that can inspire other people without perhaps even being realizing that he's doing it, Steve.
All right, let's move on to Noah. Noah Wicks, and his log is called Domestic Supply Balagas HGH and BPC 157 Recovery Cycle Log. So Noah has pushed himself really hard the past 2 years. He really dove headfirst into bodybuilding. And when you do that, as many of us have done, what ends up happening is you get some overuse, nagging injuries that pop up. And it's not like it was in your teens and 20s where you get these injuries and you just work out through them and they go away.
Yeah.
What ends up happening is when you combine steroid use, and you combine the amount of weights we're doing, and the volume and age, wear and tear, it ends up catching up to you. So his main issues were elbow and knee issues, and that has made his training and cardio absolutely miserable. And there's nothing worse than those types of joint issues. So he put together a log where he was mixing HGH, 1 IU per day, along with BPC 157, which is a peptide.
Yeah.
And the good news is he's had a lot of success on this log. So you guys should definitely go on there and follow to see what he did if you're in the same situation. Now he's able to push some very heavy weight on his legs and is setting personal records. So I'll give you an example. He posted a couple days ago, belt squat, 1 by 15 at 180 pounds, which is a personal record for him for reps. Then he did 1 by 12, 190. Then he did 1 by 10 for 195, which is also a PR for weight. So 195 weight and a PR for reps at 15 reps. He also did laying hamstring curl, 1 by 15 and 1 by 12. He got up to 115 pounds on that. Seated calf press machine, 1 by 15, 120, 2 by 12 at 125. And he also did 10 minutes foam rolling back and hamstrings. So he's making sure he's keeping everything loose. So I think one of the things he learned was I got to do a better job. I got to do a better job warming up. I got to do a better job
Yes,
when it comes to the foam rolling, the massaging,
yes,
the
yes.
stretching, all that other stuff that you have to do, the maintenance you have to do that a lot of people don't do. Most people walk into the gym all all
Yeah,
cocky, they start
yeah,
throwing around heavy weights and they leave.
yeah.
They don't do any warm up, they don't do any stretching, and they think that they're the shit and they're not. You're fucking garbage because
You're human. You're
you're just gonna
human.
end up hurt,
Yeah,
So
yeah,
Noah's smart. He learned that I have to warm up properly and I have to stretch and I have to work on mobility, and that's how I'm gonna stay healthy. So he's doing what he has to do, and he learned it the hard way. So his
yes.
workouts are pretty good. Total workout time on this workout mobster, an hour and a half. And that includes cardio. He's doing
Mm.
15 minutes of cardio to finish his workout, and he's getting almost a mile on there. Go ahead.
Noah, we've had on a show before. We did a show with Noah. We interviewed Noah. Real cool guy. Comes across as quite intelligent and thoughtful. And again, it's a shame that he's had to learn the hard way. Listen, I made a note while Steve was talking. It's almost a joke. I've actually seen memes about this, where if you're vaguely serious about your training, it's almost a joke that you will have some kneeling injury, whether that's shoulder, typical, elbow, myself right now, Steve, knee or hips or whatever. If I train hard in the gym, when I've done world records, Steve, it's almost a given that I'm going to fuck something up. And I'm putting my mindset into the fact that I don't care because I want the world record like I've done in the past. But the training thing with the niggling elbow, the niggling knee, the niggling neck pain, whatever, is almost, as I say, you see memes about this on Facebook. It's kind of like half funny, and you're only laughing because it's fucking true, right? So it's kind of annoying. So he's realised I don't have to do X or Y. I can do something else. Instead of doing the thing that I want to do, that's actually kind of helping me, I can change that for something else. Hence, for example, Steve, the hip belt squats, because then the weight's not pressing down in your shoulders. It's just on your waist via a belt, as per the title, and still make progress. He switched from a Planet Fitness to a more hardcore gym. And one of the things made a point back here, Steve, literally the last day or two, I think it's yesterday, in fact, which I really liked for him. A competing bodybuilder approached him in the gym and said, "You're looking good, etc., etc." There's a bit of back and forth. Said, "How much do you weigh?" So on and so forth. And actually turned around. This was a huge compliment from someone that competes, arguably someone he might compete against, and said, "The weight you are right now, if you got down to the weight you would need to be for classic, you would probably fuck some people up. You would probably do really, really well." I love the idea that someone else that competes approaches you in the gym and literally says, "Looking good. You look like you could smash the dreams of people if you put your mind to it." I believe it's one of these aspirations to compete in a not too distant future. So that kind of feedback is massively, massively reinforcing. It just makes you realize that the hard work, the pain and discomfort, the rehabbing, whatever, and you still look that fucking good that another person that's already competing turns around and says to you, "Do you know what? Love to see you on stage, fella, because I think you've got some potential." That kind of feedback is immense. It's literally like saying someone inspires you, or sorry, you inspire them, or your weight loss journey has been amazing. It made me want to do my weight loss journey better, and so on and so forth. So that kind of stuff. And I think something else as well, Steve. I think he's really helpful. I think he's helpful in the gym environment, not as much perhaps as he is on the forums, because it's the gyms and the times and being serious about what you're doing. But on the forums, it's super, super helpful. So Noah's one of those. He's one of our good guys. He's one of those people that's out there. But yeah, I mean, the commonality here and the reason for this particular log is recovering from injuries. there's almost an element, and it's half a joke again, Steve. It used to be the thing that if you had an elbow injury, and if I do this movement, doctor, it really hurts, but the doctor would turn around and stop doing that movement. It's almost that kind of stuff. Yet when we go to the gym, a lot of us that train keep doing things that perhaps we shouldn't do, perhaps not warming up, perhaps not stretching, certainly not doing enough rehab, not giving ourselves enough time off for an injury, and keep doing that thing that's hurting us. And it's almost kind of a mental illness in that particular regards. And our experience and experience of other people should be enough that when we teach you not to do that, you shouldn't have to go and wait and learn. But unfortunately, this is one of those life type things again, Steve, where we almost seem to have to fucking learn the hard way, but not to the point of destroying or having joints replaced and all the socket stuff put in and hips done, etc., etc. Not to the point of having operations, but enough where this kind of log again
Yeah.
shows you what you can do to recover and get better, etc.
So let's talk about the next guy that we're going to talk about. His name is Box Cutter, and his log is called Box Cutter's Diet Training Log. And his stats are 6'4", 225 pounds, body fat 7 or 8% body fat. So very, very lean. Cycle, he's mostly stuck to testosterone cypionate per week, a low dose, 200 milligrams, and he runs HGH with it, 2 IUs. He also does BPC 157 and TB 500, which are peptides. And he does 20 milligrams of ibutamorin. And he also has supplements that he puts together. He does Ghost multivitamins, 5 gram of creatine, 4,200 milligram fish oil. His training, I'll give you an example of his training. He does 85-pound incline dumbbell press, 2x9, 225-pound Smith bench, upper chest, 3x12, 25-pound weighted dip, 2x15, 25-pound cable crossover, 2x10, 80-pound prone incline barbell curl, 3x9, and much more. He also does a lot of core training. 195-pound abdominal crunch machine, 1x50. That's a lot. Hanging leg lifts, 2x50. Lying side crunch, 1x50. So he stays lean and he keeps those abs popping nice and hard. Diet, I'll give you an example of his diet. Really amazing micronutrients. We're talking about he's got low-fat cottage cheese, raw honey, raspberries, walnuts, bananas, grass-fed sirloin, quinoa, sweet potato, Roma tomatoes, cucumber, white mushrooms, avocado. Post-workout meal example, 2 cups of unsweetened almond milk, 30 grams of quinoa protein, 30 grams of pea protein, 30 grams of brown rice protein, 20 grams of collagen protein, and 2 tablespoons of hemp seed. So he's got a diet very full of micronutrients, Mobster. He also does things like yoga, and he gets a lot of sleep. We're talking 9-10 hours of sleep is typical for him. So he really stays in top shape. He's got a really, if you're looking for like a really tight, ripped, athletic physique, he's the guy to go check out. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's 2 things. One, and it works for him. So this is really important. I don't want to say this as a negative because it's not. As I said on another show recently, doesn't matter what I think in terms of your volume, your sets, or your exercises, if what you're doing works for you. If you're progressing, if the muscle's going the way that you want it to go, if your fat loss journey is going the way you want it to go, then it works for you. I would say that the 2 sets per exercise is fine. Absolutely. 3-4 sets as a maximum. These overall volumes, Steve, per workout is 24 and sometimes as high as 36 sets. And even our pet pro, unfortunately, who's passed away now, Monstro, was only doing roughly 25 sets per workout. So 36 sets per workout is a shitload. Again, if it's working for him, it's great. The other thing, which was super, super important, and this is right at the beginning of his log, Steve, I'll read it out specifically, had a section of bowel removed, etc., because there was a bunch of issues, a detail that came with the post, as a result of, and I'll try to pronounce this properly, diverticulitis, which is essentially, in this case, I believe he had, it got so bad. I've looked this up, and typically it's a bit of a problem for some people, can be treated with medication, etc. But his was so bad, food and, to put it crudely, shit was leaking into the space outside of the bowel, into the basically the void where all the intestines are sitting inside your stomach, inside your muscular, on your abdominal wall, etc., etc. So, of course, that is absolutely horrendous. They had to go in there, clean that up, drain it, wash everything, and then have a section of bowel taken out, literally the section that had ruptured, had holes in, and remove that and stitch another section of bowel to what was remaining, and so on and so forth. That is pretty fucking nasty to say the least, Steve. And literally having undigested food and shit in that void space is just necrosis waiting to happen. So the fact that he had the operation, was able to recover and get back on the horse, so to speak, is amazing. So once again, in this example, like one of the previous logs when I talked about the spinal issue, proof again that you can have essentially what arguably been, had it got worse, or had it not been treated, life transforming. The idea of having, for example, Steve, peg tube, which is essentially a tube going into the stomach to feed you certain medical nutrients because of digestive issues. Yeah, we talked about Crohn's and colitis where the guys are shitting, men or women, 15, 20, 30 times a day, and how hard that is. And yet I know people that still go to the gym. The fact that he's had this issue, recovered from this issue, thank goodness, it's the reason why he's got a scar on the lower part of his belly, stays in condition, is still able to hit the volume of workouts that he does, is still able to be in good shape, etc., is it's fucking outstanding, Steve. Again, it's proof that things can happen to you medically, things can happen in life, deaths, marriages, divorces, whatever else, work can get in the way, and yet you could still get back into the gym, still stay in arguably amazing shape, 8-9% body fat year fucking round, and do the volume of work that he's doing, if only in the gym. Thank goodness, perhaps it's less physical outside. I know people like this. I know people with stomach issues, and I know people that like crazy volume. It doesn't suit everybody else, but again, the medical thing in and of itself to me is inspiring because you know people chest conditions, lung conditions. I know people with MS that train. I know people that are sort of massively overweight that have dropped, we know just on the form stream, dropped 80, 90 pounds body weight. That's arguably morbidly obese where they was before. And to get back into something like normality is a job and a half. This guy's not just got to normality, he's under 10% year fucking round, looking in great shape. So if he's one of those guys, if you didn't know what was going on, he's all right, he's genetically blessed. No, motherfucker. Even if he is, he's still had to overcome major medical issues that could probably have killed him, Steve. Any third world country, he'd be dead. Had he had not the operation, it could have lost way more than just a short section of his bowel. So, yeah, it's crazy, Steve. What do you think about that before we move on?
Yeah, and ironically, that's one of the big reasons why he has such a on point diet because of all those health problems that has made him take his diet so seriously. So, and that's one of the reasons me too, because I grew up with a lot of stomach problems myself. So now as an adult, I don't want to go back to being sick all the time. I don't want to go back to having to go to the hospital every month. So I want to make sure that I eat. That motivates me to make sure that I'm eating on point. So if you're one of those people and you want to see what an amazing diet looks like, check out Box Cutter because his diet is tremendous. So our last log that we're going to talk about is a guy by the name of Mano Gordo 5. His log is called My First Testosterone Anavar Into Guard Cutting Cycle Log. So he's 28 years old. He's 6'1", 191 pounds, training for 4 years. His cycle, he started out with 300 milligrams of testosterone enanthate for 16 weeks, along with Anavar 50 milligrams a day, with 7 caps of N2 Guard and 25 milligrams of Aromasin per week. So very simple cycle, nothing really fancy about it. I mean, testosterone and Anavar, really good. I like the Anavar dose, 50 milligrams, pretty solid. There's a lot of time-restricted eating and fasting, and he posts his ketone results. So he gets ketone strips. He pees on the ketone strips. You can see that he's excreting ketones. So that's good. It means that he's burning away those fat cells. He also loves fasted cardio, and he does that for over an hour. So he's really using fasting to his advantage on this. So I'm going to give you a typical leg workout for him before I bring in Mobster to talk a little bit more about this guy. So seated hamstring curl, 205 pounds, 12 reps. Then he does 205 pounds, 10 reps. Then he does another 205 pounds, 10 reps. Um, Next, he does leg extensions, 240 pounds for 8 reps, 240 pounds for 10 reps, and 240 pounds for 10 reps. So it's very, very interesting how he keeps the weights the same. Um, he also does Romanian deadlifts, which he calls RDL. And he goes 225 at 12 reps. Then he jumps to 315, which is 3 plates for 10 reps, then 315 for 6 reps. So it's very interesting the way he structures his workouts, Mobster. It's very, very interesting. A little different than what a lot of people do. He tends to keep his weights the same. So talk a little bit about Mr. Mono Gordo 5.
Yeah, I tell you what springs to mind, Steve. And again, it's not a negative. It's just atypical, I guess, in its way. I've talked about how sometimes we can be overwhelmed by the sheer amount of information that's available compared to the past, the sheer amount of training videos and training modalities and training stuff you can do, and food and information and apps that can almost do the thinking for you. So what I kind of noticed, and this actually applies more to his food than it does to his training, but even to a lesser degree his training, he has learnt from starting the log more than from before. He's picked up information that he wasn't aware of. I made a note where I said didn't seem to know, and this is past tense because he's obviously learned since then. Didn't seem to know much about macros. So what happens, right, is you get, and I think he kind of typifies this in that particular way. Comes onto the forum, wants to hit a target, wants to make something happen, get fat, get strong, whatever, right? And we say, write a log, write a log, write a log. So he starts a log and immediately kind of realized needs to know a little bit more about training. Perhaps he's not pushing himself as hard as he could do. Food could be better, and so on and so forth. This is literally just in the first 2, 3, 4 pages. And then if you go 16 pages, if you go 24 pages, you go 36 pages, you see he's learned about food. You see he's learned about training. You see he's making progress. He's made progress because his diet's got better. He's made progress because his training got better. And that's literally just because of the information he's been given. So it's just like that. That's probably, he's not new, but I think if he was new to the gym, he would typify that against Steve. The way that we train, because my mate said this is how I should train. A buddy told me this is how he trained his legs. And the next thing you know, some person that's been doing it for 20 years comes over and says, son, what the fuck are you doing? Can I just stay with you for 5 minutes to show you how to do squats properly or leg press properly or whatever else? And this is kind of what's happened here a little bit, insofar as for example, I wrote he needs a better PCT because he literally had like sort of 2-thing PCT and stuff like that. The one thing that he was doing, which we didn't need to correct, was the use of N2 guard as an organ protector. But loads of guys come on the forum initially and they say, oh, this is good. They'll talk about in depth about their cycle, and the PCT is almost an afterthought. We go, no. You want to be better, keep muscle, recover ready for the next cycle, for the next training target you have. You need a better PCT. You need a better diet, and so on and so forth. This is what's happened. And we've come in there and we said, no, do this, fix that, apply this, and so on and so forth. The training numbers, for example, I might train in the same way that he does in terms of having a number target. But the reality is, especially if you're bodybuilding, which he is, over myself as a strength thing, is that if there's a rep there, do it. If you can't do it and you're rep short, fine, so long as you push yourself as hard as possible. So there's almost an argument to say, could he perhaps have done a few more reps? Why is both those 2 sets of 10? Why is it not different? Because you trained your ass off and you literally hit the wall at 10 reps. And so the next set can't be 10 reps again. It means you held something back, and so on and so forth. So that's that sort of whole learning as you go along, learning how hard you can push yourself, finding out your headspace, realizing how being better on your food macros has actually made you better in the gym, and so on and so forth. Better PCT, etc., etc. Don't wait until you've done a PCT and you didn't recover. Don't wait until you've done a PCT and lost muscle. Why can't we help you now to keep muscle, to keep your gains? Why can't we help you now to improve your diet? And my God, you've had even better results because that's what's important. And of course, what do we help these people for, Steve? It's not just to go to the gym and go through the motions. It's because we want them to progress. So he's a good example of someone that's taken the information on board. And the only other comment that I made here, Steve, was regarding the fact that he seems to have injured his foot in some way that he can't quite understand. It might even just be something that he's doing on leg exercises and he's put his foot down in a particular way without realizing. It might be that he's got a poor shoe, there's not wearing the right shoes to the gym. Silly little tiny things. It's in there. The rest of us have all kind of like, what have you done? How have you done it? Here's how to ice it. Here's how to strap it. Here's how to recover. So again, we want him to be good. We want his nutrition on point. We want his training on point. We want him to progress. And again, if you look at his training log, that's what's happened. He's learned. He's taken information on board. I'd actually argue Steve is probably one of the more sponge-like in terms of he's been soaking up the good information and he's been making good use
Yeah.
of what we tried to tell him to progress. Go on.
Yeah, in life, it's like going to the doctor. You go to the doctor and the doctor tells you something and you're like, no, I'm not going to do that. And the doctor gets frustrated. How many times does that happen? I know it's happened in my situation. The doctor wanted to put me on some type of medication. I told the doctor, no, I don't want that medication. Blah, blah, blah. And the doctor gets frustrated. It's the same thing. It's like, dude, you know, just be open to what we're saying. We're the professionals. Take our advice and try it out, and it's worked for him, and we see this with these logs. I think that's one of the blessings about having the forums. I mean, is you're getting a lot of knowledge and
Yes.
that you're not
And
going to get anywhere
experience.
else,
Yes.
because there's so much bullshit out there. Like, there's so much misinformation. Social media is all crap. The people who run social media are all billionaire assholes who don't give a shit about anyone else, and they just don't care about the information that's out there. There's nothing, no filter. So we are really legitimately trying to help you. So when you come on
Yes.
the phone, like, he didn't know very much about time restricted eating. Now he knows. Now he knows about
Yeah.
ketone strips. Now he knows about fasted cardio. And it's helped him take things to the next level that would have
Yes.
never been possible if he had just listened to his buddies in the gym or some of these other
Yeah.
idiots on
Yeah.
social media or on these other bodybuilding forums full of meatheads who don't know shit about nutrition. So he's been able to use things as a weapon that he wasn't able to use before. So when you are a smart person, you are willing to listen to people and get ideas and use them to your advantage. If you are an ignorant person and you're a stubborn person, you're a stupid person, you're not. You're just gonna be like, you know what? I'm gonna do it my way. That's it, and it doesn't work. And then you wonder what the hell happened because you're not willing to be flexible with things. There's always going to be things that are going to change over time. You have to adjust to it or you're not going to survive. The Xerox uh, uh, the guy who fixes Xeroxes for a living, Mobster, back in your day, what is he doing today? Is he still fixing Xeroxes? No, because there's no
No.
need for his job. He had to evolve and adjust to the
Yeah.
times. If he was smart, he would have adjusted and turned to more AI, computer stuff. And now he fixes that sort of thing. And now he still has a job. But the stubborn Xerox guy is out of work now and he can't get a job because no offices have Xerox machines anymore. You see? So same thing with the VCR guy, the guy who fixes VCRs for a living. We don't use VCRs anymore. What the fuck is the point of that job? You have to evolve through life and you have to be willing to try new things.
Yeah. I mean, look here, Steve. Why do we help other people on the forums? And I'm not just talking about Steve and Arnie's podcast. I'm talking about the other members who don't do the podcast with us because they like what they do. They like how they feel. It makes them feel good to see someone else progressing. It makes them feel good to see someone else in shape, hitting their targets, hitting their macros, hitting their numbers, becoming stronger. That's the reason why we do that. The community that we have, and there's obviously a hardcore group that for the core of that community, It's the same. Listen, when I go to my local gym, when Steve goes to his local gym, when Steve and some of our other members have gone to what we call the more hardcore gyms, ironically, once you get to be known at the hardcore gyms, you get more help than you'd think you would. Those big, angry, bald, fucking 350-pound powerlifters, strongmen, etc., are the most helpful people you'll ever meet. The top bodybuilders, unless they're getting in the last few weeks of contest prep, are the people that you can ask for information. Um, I mean, give you an example. Our local IFBB pro is training Lewis, who works behind the counter 2 days a week, and Lewis is seemingly great genetics, probably going to compete in the next 2 years. And I saw him being put for a calf workout 2 days ago. Looked real uncomfortable, being told to do it properly, being told to stretch in between, etc. And that's what we're doing on the forums. This is not something being paid for. It's just something if someone recognizes that you're hard training, you're going to do well, and we're willing to assist you because we know that we're going to get a return, even if it's only in the fact that we helped you to make that progress and educate you and save you the time and the trouble for fucking up and whatever else. Steve. So that's we like that. Don't make the mistakes we've made. Do the things that we're telling you to do that we know work. We'll enjoy helping you, and you will get something back out of it. And this particular member is a good example of that. Who's listened, who's taken that information on board, and is benefiting from that information. And if anybody else wants to come in and see what's going on, that's the good example to have a look at.
So let's talk about Ultima. And first of all, I want to apologize. My voice may be a little hoarse. I'm kind of getting over a little bit of a cold, and I was doing a lot of screaming over the weekend during the game. So I apologize for that. But the show must go on. So I'm doing my best on the show. So look, Ultima, I've used them many times. I know Mobster, you've used them as well. So they are really good at selling their products in bulk and passing those savings on to you. So their prices are excellent. They also, a lot of guys on the forums are using their products and their logs for a reason because their products work. So they don't just have amazing steroids, they also have great ancillaries on and off cycle, make sure everything goes smooth. They also have fast shipping, and they have very quality service. So you can come on the forums, anabolx.com or evolutionary.org, find out where you can get Ultima products because they are legit and they are good quality. We've had their products tested, and you know that you're getting good quality stuff when you use them. So all these steroids that we've talked about on these logs, Ultima has Pharma has gone a long way to hook these guys up with great products. And they've gotten the products on their own, by the way. Ultima hasn't sent them products and said, hey, do a log. They've done these,
No,
they've
exactly.
out of their own pocket, they bought the Ultima products and they've gotten Ultima. So Ultima is a great, great brand. Talk about Ultima Mobster before we finish up.
I'm looking at one of the reseller site here, Steve, and I think we're looking at something like 100+ different items that they sell. I'm looking, for example, at a page, just as page one of 8 pages of products that will include domestic as well as international options of the same products. And there's a bunch of new products just right at the top of page one, Steve. Again, I said on other companies when I talked about the option for the foil strips, which you don't see or aren't as common as they used to, and they've got that. They've got the bottles of the pills as well. You've got different options and different blends. Again, just page one, looking at the top 9 products, and they've got a test and EQ blend that I'm looking at right now. Price wise, great. Clean looking products as well, Steve. I do like that. I've said before when we talked about other brands and other sponsors, looking at a clean looking medical like. If you go into a pharmacy and they open up the cabinets to get the medication that you've been prescribed, they all have a sort of look about them that comes from the pharmaceutical companies. And this is done deliberately to make a product look like medicine, to make it look like the pharmaceutical product that it is. And we've seen almost Mickey Mouse type products with multiple colors on. I've seen other ones where it literally looks like it's been done with some sort of kiddie's My First printing set. A certain home brewers sort of sharing stuff with their buddy type products, just horrendous. We've seen companies that produce the other end, which would be free labels, literally triple detailed, peel the top layer off, see the information underneath. I like the fact that these products look like they would be in a pharmacy. And so the idea, again, that makes you trust them. It means, as we know from the test, that they can be trusted, that the products are good to go. And then if you come onto the forums and you check out the forums and you say, look on, literally search for Ultima, you will find examples of people running their products right now. And again, for yourself, for your own satisfaction, you can go page 1, see where there was at the beginning of the stack in the cycle, and then go to the last page and see the most up-to-date photographs, see the progress they're making, and see how they're doing it with products that they bought, which includes Ultima products, and seeing that therefore these products are good to go, people getting great results on them. And that's what's super, super important. We can argue about brands all day long, Steve, but people want to know that the brand that they're using, the product that they're using, works. And that is the most important thing, that it contains exactly what it's supposed to. You can look for feedback. Has anybody ever had problems with Ultima? No, not that I'm aware of. And you can check that for yourselves. Is there any post-injection pain product issues? Perhaps with a higher dose. So you've got other options. They produce blends, so you don't have to buy 2 products. You can buy 1 product. I like to have the foil strips in my bag. Good. They've got that for you too. That's the way that a company is. They look at what the customers want, and that's how you should look for a company like Ultima producing those kind of products. Look, come on to the forum, guys. Look at the logs that we've talked about. Offer your own support. If they've got an example of something that reflects what you've got in your life, then we've got examples of those kind of logs on Anabolics. You can come, you can read their logs, you can be inspired, and you can apply the lessons that they've learned to yourself. Let us know what you think in the notes below, the comments below. Come onto the forums, check out these things. Please note, we are not doctors and opinions are ours. It's our view and based on our experience and views on the topic. A podcast of informational purposes and entertainment only. The freedom of speech and the First Amendment applies.